Welcome. My name is Marian Daniels, and I am a director at Vested. I'm joined today by Stacy Pearl-Dauber, a senior vice president at Baylord, to talk about Baylard's journey towards B Corp certification. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you, Marian.
Fantastic. So let's take a step back and maybe can you share a little bit more about what it means to be a B Corp?
Absolutely. So being a B Corp means that as a company, you're considering various social and environmental issues. You're considering various stakeholders when you make business decisions, those being your clients, your employees, your community, the environment. On a formal level, being a B Corp, it's a third-party certification, and it's saying that you've met certain social and environmental performance metrics, accountability, transparency. It also means that you've joined a cohort of other B Corps, and it's a great way to grade yourself against those companies as you seek continuous improvement.
Makes a lot of sense. So maybe tell us a little bit about Baylard's motivation for becoming a B Corp in the first place.
Baylord, as we looked into the process to certify and what it means to be a B Corp, the values, the mission, we realized we already encompassed so much of that. We've been walking this B Corp walk for decades. And then when I say decades, we've been around for 55 years as an independent asset management firm in the San Francisco Bay Area. And in our business, staying independent is truly unique. And you can really only attain that by having these high standards, by prioritizing your clients. Most of our clients were at the stage where we're managing assets for the grandkids of our original client base.
Wow.
It's really rewarding. As we grow, our employee tenure reflects that. Not only have our clients been with us for decades, but our employees have a very long average tenure, and that reflects the benefits and challenging and flexible career paths we have. So as we looked into this process, it just became very clear this is a great way to validate what we're already doing, especially as you think about managing assets for your clients. You want to make sure you're building relationships with other strong third parties, whether it's estate planners, accountants, consultants, and becoming a certified B Corp introduces you to those other like-minded firms.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of the good housekeeping seal of approval, and for others too. So you know as you're working with them that you're kindred spirits.
Absolutely.
So how long was the process that Baylord went through in order to get the certification?
Sure. So it took about a year once we decided to jump into the deep end of the pool and do the assessment. But notably, before you're committed to that full assessment, there's a pre-assessment you can do, which gives a nice indication of whether you would make it through the full process. So I highly recommend that for anyone considering it. You can complete it in a couple hours with the right folks at the firm answering it with you. And so once you've done that pre-assessment, again, the full assessment itself took us a little over a year, and you're attesting to your standards to various stakeholders. So there's your workers. How are you compensating them? What are their benefits? What does the training look like?
Right.
There's your community. So are you charitably inclined? At Baylord, we have a foundation actually that directs our charitable giving. So it was very clear up front that aligned very well for us. Are you hiring locally in the community? And then there's the environment. What are your emissions look like? Your supply chain sourcing, your distribution channels. And all of the questions that you'll be given will be specific to the industry you're in. Obviously, you're a consumer goods company. That's going to differ from a more service-oriented company like asset management. And then the last stakeholder would be governance. So what are your ethics, your accountability, your transparency protocols at the firm?
That makes sense. So I heard employees, community, the environment, and then governance. Sounds like, and you mentioned that there were many kind of people participating with you. Can you tell us more about the village that you had to bring together in order to complete the assessment?
It is truly an undertaking across the whole firm. It takes a village to go through the assessment. You should choose a point person, that was me in this case, and make sure they're well supported by every area of the firm.
Okay.
So for an asset manager, investments, research, HR, marketing, management team, you have to make sure everyone's moving in the same direction with the same goals, which at a smaller firm as well, that's easier. But it's very clear that you need everyone on the same page. And that's a great opportunity as well, because it is a unifying base for employees. People will raise their hand and say, oh, I want to be involved in making sure we improve upon our emissions for the next time we recertify. And you have to recertify every 2 years on your assessment. So you're held responsible towards improving your goals. That's been a really gratifying part of this, is that you have these tangible set metrics that you're measuring yourself against and against your peers to make sure that you're improving.
Were there any concerns for Baylord as you went through that process? I mean, that's a lot of manpower, time, and energy to invest in the certification. So were there any concerns that you wouldn't get certified?
So we set out on this journey really doing the homework up front to get a sense of if we were certified.
Got it.
And you do need that motivation as you go through it. So I highly recommend doing the pre-assessment at the beginning, talking to other firms in your industry that are B Corps to get a sense of how you measure up, how aligned you are, any pitfalls they felt when they went through the process. And then when you do enter the full mode of the true assessment, you should have a good sense of motivation behind you to finish it. You'll have a pretty good sense. And B Corp too is there to support you along the way. They want to see companies improve. They want more B Corps in the world. That's the best outcome for everybody. So overall, we felt very cared for and confident as we went through the process.
And you'd mentioned that the standards look kind of different or are customized kind of to the industry that you're in. Most of the B Corps that I'm familiar with, that many of the viewers are familiar with, are probably more in the kind of consumer space. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about some of the benefits unique to the wealth and asset management space that you've experienced and that may kind of make the case for other wealth and asset managers to become B Corps? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an area that many asset managers don't think of as being a natural fit. But it's a great exercise to go through for many reasons. First, you're going to be introduced to other like-minded businesses. And when you're managing a client's assets, you're interacting with their estate planning attorney, their accountant, consultants. So to make those long-lasting relationships with these other firms is a very fruitful outcome of the process. It's also a great way to attract and retain top talent. Employees these days very much want to know that their company is thinking more than just the bottom line, that you have these other stakeholder interests in mind. And then the opportunity to improve year over year. I mentioned every 2 years you have to recertify, and it gives this great point of what are the projects we can think about, what's the community service we can improve upon. The Baylord Foundation, for example, does quite a bit of financial literacy outreach in our local community. So employees will go out and work with local nonprofits, high school students, in teaching them those financial literacy skills. And so there's just so many synergies that come together as you go through the process, and you learn about how you can, again, continuously improve as a company, which is just a great outcome for all parties involved.
Absolutely, for the whole village.
Yep.
And you've sprinkled some tips throughout our conversation. Are there any tips that you would really highlight for wealth and asset managers who are interested in going through the process and exploring becoming a B Corp?
When you choose a point person, make sure that they're quite familiar with all areas of the firm, more of a generalist, and then support them with those specialists underneath from the different departments. So whether it's research, HR, marketing, because you'll get really in depth on the assessment. And you want to make sure your answers are as accurate as possible, since you're recertifying every 2 years and holding yourself accountable to those goals that you've set and those standards that you've reached. So getting everyone on board, getting the right folks to support you is really key to certification.
Makes perfect sense. Well, thank you so much, Stacey, again. So appreciate you coming and having this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marian.